Okay, moving on to the back side where you're solving quadratics. Solving, when you are looking at a graph, you are looking for the x-intercepts. So I'm just going to look here. Where does it cross the x-axis? It crosses it at 1, and it crosses it at -3. It's not a point together. They're both x values. It's just like when we solve using quadratic formula, you get x equals an answer. So you have x equals 1 and x equals -3. Next up, using square roots. To solve using square roots, you need to get x squared by itself first. So this is not where you want it equal to 0. I'm going to -18 divide by 2. I get x squared equals -9. Some of you know from here, if not, I need to square root it to get rid of x squared. You cannot square root a negative, not possible, so it is no solution. If you tried putting it in your calculator, you would have gotten an error. For number 8, I'm going to add 36. Divide by 4. I get x squared equals 9. Again, square root that. Here's the big thing a lot of you are going to remember. You must have the plus and the minus. Okay, it is positive or negative. You will lose points on the test if you forget plus or minus, because you can square root 9, but it's positive. So when you square root +9, you could have -3, because -3 times -3 gives you 9, or +3. Your calculators will not tell you that. You need to know it. Next up is factoring. For all the other ways, you need to get it equal to 0 first. So I'm going to add 9 here. So we get 4x squared plus 12x plus 9 equals 0. When I say factor, I mean to list out your factors. Like 4 could be 2 and 2, or 4 and 1, or it could have been 1 and 4. And then for 9, I could have it could be +1 and +9, or it could be 3 and 3, or I think that's it. So now remember you have 2 parentheses when you're factoring. Remember these go with your x's, like 2x and 2x, and I'm going to test it with this combination first. So I'm going to put +1 and +9. I'm going to FOIL it. I get 4x squared. I'm going to see if I get the right thing. Plus 18x plus 2x. I already can tell this won't work because this adds to 20x, and I need it to add to 12x. So this was not the right combination. So I'm going to instead, I'm going to try it with the 2's with that. So I'm going to try it with +3 and +3. When I do that, I get 4x squared plus 6x plus 6x. This looks good. Plus 9. 4x squared plus 12x plus 9. So this did work. Now, this is just like your check. That's not your answer. Same thing with your factoring is just your factored part. I haven't solved it. So once you get it, then you need to set it equal to 0 and solve. Set both parentheses. This case is kind of weird because they're going to be the same, but normally they're not. So get x by itself, divide by 2, and I get x equals -1.5. I would get the same thing here because it's the same thing, but if you don't believe me, you could do it. Divide by 2, and you get x equals -1.5. So that is your answer for the first one. For the second one, I'm going to add 5x. Make sure you add it in the middle because it's the x term. This one, the factoring is pretty easy because it's 1 and 1 here. Multiplies to 6. I've got 3 and 2, and 6 and 1. So I'm going to do x plus 3, x plus 2 equals 0. If I FOIL that, x squared plus 2x plus 3x plus 6, that does work. So that's good. So now I just need to, I'm going to try to make that clear. Now I just need to set both of these parentheses equal to 0 and solve. I subtract 3, subtract 2 for here. I get x equals -3 and x equals -2. And that's your two answers. For your quadratic formula then, remember to get it equal to 0 first. That's the first step always. So A is 3, B is -2, and C is -4. Then I'm gonna plug into my quadratic formula. You will get the formula on the test, but I'm just gonna write it right here. So I'm gonna do -b turns into +2, plus or minus square root. Make sure you use parentheses around that. -4 times 3 times -4, all over 2 times a, which is 3. My suggestion, I know people have different calculators and some calculators do it better. I put all of this without the square root in my calculator first. So I do -2 squared minus, make sure you use the minus sign, 4 times 3 times, and then -4. And I got 52. So I'm going to go ahead and do, so that means this turns into x equals 2 plus or minus the square root of 52. I haven't square rooted yet. On the bottom, 2 times 3 is 6. Next step is to square root 52. So I'm going to do second right here. Square root of 52 gives you 7.211. I'm just going to round that up to 7.21. So I'm going to do x equals 2 plus or minus 7.21 divided by 6. Some people get stuck here. Remember, all you're going to do is split it once where you add on top and once where you subtract on top. So I'm just trying to make my page a little bigger. So I'm going to do it once where I do add on top and once where I subtract on top. From this first one, you get 9.21 divided by 6. 9.21 divided by 6 gives you 1.535. I'm going to round that up to 1.54. So that's one of your answers. Over here, 2 minus 7.21 gives you -5.21. And then you'd have to divide that by 6 still. And I'm just going to take that, divide it by 6. And I get -0.87. That would be your final answer, those two answers then. For the second one, the big thing is that you would need to subtract 84 first. So I have 5x squared plus 16x minus 84 equals 0. A is 5, B is 16, and C is -84. So I do x equals -16 plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4 times 5 times -84, all over 2 times 5. One thing to remember is if this turns out to be a negative, you can't square root it, so you get no solution. But I'm just going to keep going with my calculator. Again, start with what's under the square root. 16 squared minus 4 times 5 times -84. And you get 1936. So I still have the square root, but I haven't square rooted it yet. And this one's all going to be over 10. So I'm going to square root 1936. And you get 44. So I have x equals -16 plus or minus 44 all over 10. So remember, do it once where you add on top. I'm just going to do this quickly. You get when you add on top, you get 28 over 10. When you subtract on top, you get -60 over 10. So this gives you 2.8, and this gives you -6.